When most people hear the word dictator, they assume the worst. They assume chaos, fear, failure. But if I told you there was an anomaly just a few years ago, this anomaly turned one of the poorest countries in the world into a global giant. This person was oftentimes called the good dictator. This person was no other than Lee Kwan Yew. Lee Kwan Yew was the leader of Singapore, was the first ever elected Prime Minister of Singapore. And today, his legacy will help us understand why Rwanda is being called the new Singapore. Lee Kwan Yew, the first ever elected Prime Minister of Singapore, was a strict but visionary headmaster, demanding discipline, punishing corruption, and rewarding excellence. At independence, Singapore was nothing but a small pot, a small muddy pot with no natural resources, almost like a ship without a compass. Does that sound familiar? It should. If it doesn't, we bring you closer. Rwanda. Small? Yes. Landlocked? Indeed. No natural resources? Some might say. But Lee Kuan Yew believed that it's not the size of the nation or its natural resources that determines its success as a nation. He believed that strong leadership and discipline are the key factors that determine a nation's success. So, here's the question. Can discipline and vision truly and truly turn a small nation into a global giant? Well, Lee Kuan Yew believed that the answer is yes. He said that if there is zero tolerance to corruption, country can survive. That was his first main effort, and he actually emphasized this. He implemented this, right? The second thing that he said, there should be heavy investment in education. And the third was long-term planning instead of short-term popularity. And as a result, Singapore turned from a muddy pot into a global miracle, becoming a financial and technological hub admired across the world, inspiring the whole world. Rwanda is following the same path because there has been strict anti-corruption laws, clean and orderly capitals, major investment in education and technology, and government has been focused on results rather than excuses, right? But there's always critics that argue that these leadership frameworks limit political freedoms, and this debate is actually very important for all the good reasons. But one must not neglect what this structure of leadership has accomplished. For many citizens, they believe that stability, safety, and progress can be traded off for political freedoms and other things, right? So so both presidents or both leaders believe that that order has to come before chaos, and structure before freedom. Lee Kuan Yew proved that leadership doesn't have to always be loud. It need only be effective and intentional. And Rwanda's journey suggests that Africa does not need to copy the West. Africa does not need to entirely rely on its natural resources, but rather it needs to rely on discipline and the courage to play the long game, to invest in long-lasting things. And so, when people say that Rwanda is the new Singapore, is the Singapore of Africa, they're not merely making a compliment. No, they're recognizing a strategy that's been proved to work. Thank you. My name was Joshua Dahiro, and I was taking you through why Rwanda is becoming the new Singapore of Africa. Have a nice evening.